Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin. It's the Day Ghost, and come with us if you want to watch some Terminator.
If you want, I guess.
Because that's what we're gonna do this evening. Tonight we're gonna watch Terminator 2. We did the first Terminator film several weeks ago, and finally we're getting to this one. And in the interim, we knocked out Sarah Connor Chronicles. We did a whole conversation about that. Austin, I've gotten like 3 or 4 messages from different people who are like, every time we announce a Terminator thing, they're like, man, I really hope that at some point you guys tackle Sarah Connor. We're like, we did that. This is the second thing we did.
Oh God, yeah.
It keeps coming up.
Yeah, that was a few weeks ago now, yeah. It's the first Terminator commentary is back in May now. So,
Wow, was it that far back?
yeah, I was looking at our chat the one night and I was like, oh my God, that was back in May.
Time moves differently for me than it does for other people. I'm doing so many different things. Usually I'm lucky, if I do a whole franchise like this, I'm lucky if I get it done within a couple of years.
Oh, for sure. Well, and then I thought about it and I was like, oh yeah, I was still off work when we did Terminator 1.
People are saying you have an echo, which I was concerned might end up happening.
Oh, weird, because I don't hear an echo from you.
Weird, yeah. Folks, let me know if that is still happening. I'm gonna try turning a slider down, and if I have to, I may have to change some settings around. I'm trying a new setup tonight. I've been having audio issues, as folks, if you've been watching live, will know. But yeah, let me know if Austin still has that problem, guys, because I'm gonna have to move some things around if that continues to be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I was laughing the other night with After Dark because there was audio issues with me, and then I went back and watched the Captain Logan show, and he had the exact same issue with DJ on that. It was the same night.
And then Horrid Film says they can't even hear you, which makes no sense.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's see. I should probably have the chat open.
Yeah, that'd be good. And then Mutali says it's still happening. Okay. Well, guys, give me just a... Oh, and then Noah says that you're good now. Okay. All right. I'm not totally sure if I should be switching anything around or not.
Don't come with me if you want to hear.
Okay, guys, let me know if it's still a problem. I think maybe when somebody said they couldn't hear you, it was because you weren't talking. But I'm not totally positive.
I think that'll normally happen. Like, I often can't hear me when I don't speak as well.
Anyway, well, I'm excited about this. We worked really hard in the first Terminator commentary not to just talk about this film the whole time, and so this time we actually do get to talk about this film.
This time we're gonna have a hard time not talking about 3 because that'll be the big talking point.
No, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. Actually, yeah. The only thing I remember about the movie is there's a chase sequence in the first half an hour with a big crane, and there is a female Terminator who looks like a kind of a bimbo with eyes that don't tell you anything. And I remember the ending being amazing, and that's what I remember about that movie.
Well, it's T2 with a different ending. So if you remember this movie, you basically remember that movie.
Oh, okay. Well, sort of. Except there's not the little kid though.
Yeah.
You don't
replace the kid with a girl, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't have that amazing child actor, which we'll talk about because he's really good in places, and then it gets hilarious in other places.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat earlier, and there were some people saying that they find him annoying in this.
There's places. There's a couple places specifically. And Horrid Film says that I'm louder than you. Yeah, I turned Austin down a little bit when people said he was echoing.
Can you hear me a little bit louder now?
Well, now you just sound like I'm getting drive-through at McDonald's. Kurt the Gamer, we are going to be doing the theatrical version this evening. Austin and I just spent the last hour having a nightmare over that because we watched 2 entirely different cuts and didn't realize it. I forgot this had an extended cut, and I don't know if that's the one I saw when I did the review several years ago or not. I think it's like 12, 15 minutes longer. And you said something about an alternate ending. I vaguely remember something about that, but I haven't seen that in a long time, if I've seen it at all.
If I had the director's cut, that does not have the alternate ending, so it must just be deleted, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have to remind me what the alternate ending is.
Yeah, when we get
into it. All right, well, guys, let's go ahead and get started. If you don't have a copy of this movie and you want to watch the theatrical version with us, it's on Amazon right now for $3 for standard if you're in America, and $4 for the HD version. I know Austin said he only had to pay $2 in Canada, which is probably the only thing you've ever paid less for.
Yeah,
in
that's
Canada.
Really strange. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because our dollar's worth less. That'd be like $1 for you. Wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of strange. But anyway, somebody asked if you were on a green screen. No, this is just a thing that you can do these days because we're in the future now, and you don't even have to have a green screen.
Red wall behind me, but I just figured that was boring to look at.
So instead, he's just going to risk us getting copyright flagged. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, let's get started. Here we go. Get a timestamp 0. Past all the menus if you have menus.
Echo on me now.
What's that?
I can hear an echo on myself now. I don't know if the chat can.
Now you're hearing an echo. But you weren't before.
Wait, hold on.
Fantastic.
I'm not hearing it now. It was just like the 3 things I said that I could hear it.
Well, now...
Mutale asks, no Terminator shirt for me. I'm wearing a Pet Cemetery shirt.
Tell us how that's related.
Edward Furlong was in Pet Cemetery 2, which came out the year after, which I watched for this commentary as a joke. Biggest mistake of my life. It was horrible. Are you going to tell us about it? No, because I've already forgotten about it. I was going to say, this isn't one of those commentaries where I would figure we need a lot of filler. Like, there's plenty of stuff to say. But yeah, I'm wearing a T2 shirt. I totally forgot I had this until this morning, and I was like, oh man, I've never had cause to wear this on camera. I better put this on today. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Everybody get it to timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now. Here we go. Everybody please press play right now. I just want to do that like the whole movie now. I mean, yeah, because that theme is awesome. Thanks everybody for being here. If you're watching live right now. Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if you know this, but the reason why this movie took a few years to make was because there's a bit of like copyright issues after the first movie. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Right after that first one, yeah. Yeah, and at the time, this was the most expensive film ever made, apparently. And it was certainly the biggest video of that year, or the biggest movie of that year. Yeah. Austin, I'm sorry, I may have to start over here. For some reason, I'm having issues. I was getting audio but no video, and then I reset the movie, and now I'm getting nothing. I don't know why. Okay, no worries. I just put it back to timestamp 0. Sorry about the technical issues here, guys. So while we're doing that, this video is brought to you by Sour Cherry Blasters, which are invisible. So I guess we're bad at our jobs. I guess we're not going to get that check now. I guess not. Or you're not going to get that check now, I should say. Oh, strange. Okay, so what happened was, a little bit of inside baseball. I had to switch to a different browser because it wasn't letting me use subtitles earlier on my Chrome, and this browser will not let me watch the video on my projector. So I'm either going to have to put it over here, or I don't really know what I'm going to do right now. Or I guess I can watch it without subtitles, but that kind of sucks. You'll just have to imagine the film. I guess, yeah. Man, I'm just having a day here. Come on, how can you be a geek and not just know the scene for scene in your mind? I mean, I know it well enough. I can probably live without that. So I guess that's what I'm gonna do, but begrudgingly. Man, God, it's always one step forward and 2 steps back. Ugh. First thing about your job, Cap, is you just gotta get good at it. Oh, thanks, man. Well, 11 years and somebody's still watching, so the joke's on you. Jokes are always on me.
Okay, guys, I apologize. We're going to have to go back to timestamp 0 again. But this time I am getting picture, just no words. That's okay. I can just be illiterate. It's fine. Okay, once again.
Watch with subtitles. Ugh.
You don't have subtitles on?
No, I never put subtitles on.
Oh, well, you're a rookie. That's how you're supposed to want to do commentaries. All right,
I got a headset in so I can hear.
Everybody, please press play right now.
So I don't know if you know this, but this movie took a few years to make because there was a copyright issue.
You know, I didn't know that, Austin. I never heard that before. So what was the copyright issue?
I'm not sure. I think it was probably just like the company that owned it, maybe. Because the first one was Orion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we made fun of that last time.
Yeah.
Because that was just a few years before they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Is bankrupt. No, this is Korolko. Or that's one of the distributors anyway. There's a lot of names on this that weren't on that first one.
Yeah, apparently this movie, while being the most expensive film ever made at the time, basically made all of its money back before release just through distribution. Noah says they can hear the film audio.
Yeah, thanks. I fixed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know I seem super unprofessional tonight, but I'm using a totally different setup, so...
Right after this, too.
Say it again?
Daniel Davis says that Carolco went bankrupt 2 years after this movie.
That's great. Of course it did.
And already we're showing just how much higher of a budget this film did.
Yeah, of course. And we don't keep jumping into the future like we did with the first one, but what little we see of it is so much grander.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, you can definitely tell, because the first one has a $6 million budget, and this one's I think 200 million? I think.
Was it that high? And that's really high in 91.
I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, that's wild. So the opening here is basically going to be...
Million, sorry.
I was going to say, surely it wasn't as much as 2.
Yeah.
So the opening here is what the video games were.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, especially the arcade shooter.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. And we're starting to get into the CGI stuff with this movie, of course, just like Jurassic Park. But they really mess around with every type of special effect in this one.
Yeah, and of course it goes without saying that a lot of why it holds up is because of the mix between the practical and the visual effects, and that
it's that Jurassic Park thing.
Yeah, of course, and we're just like with Jurassic Park, we're only using visual effects when that's the only possible way we can accomplish a thing. And there are of course places where where you can say it's a little dated, but holds up way better than you would expect from this year, because this movie is trying CG that we never tried before, and on a scale we'd never tried before, and it was obviously super influential and groundbreaking in 19 different ways.
Yeah, there's, I think, only one shot, really, that I think is too ambitious for the time. Everything else, I think, holds up really well.
Is it anything with the T-1000?
Yes, it's at the end with the T-1000.
But not overly ambitious like that one shot from Sarah Connor Chronicles.
No, that was just ridiculous.
And I don't remember if, because I didn't go back and watch the first one again since the last time you and I watched it, since we did our commentary, but is that the only glimpse of John Connor we get in the future?
I think so, yeah. I don't think he's in the first movie. Well, yeah, and I watched it the other day. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he's not in that.
As always, guys, feel free to help us try to direct the conversation a little bit in the comments if you're watching live right now. Stussy, do you think the Terminator sequels have hurt the reputation of the first two movies similar to the effect the Matrix sequels had? I don't. I think
it made it better, to be honest.
Yeah. I think the fact that...
1 and 2 are brilliant, and all the sequels suck.
And I don't know if, and I don't want to talk too much about Matrix here. Obviously, it's really hard to do these movies without going to RoboCop and the Matrix in a lot of different places. But this imagery is so striking and really cool that
it's beautiful. Yeah.
that it comes back later the way that it does.
Yeah.
Although I find myself wondering how Sarah Connor so accurately dreamed what was going to happen that doesn't end up actually happening, because we're seeing it like I'm assuming we're not looking at her dream right now. I'm assuming that we're seeing what actually happened in the other timeline, and then when she dreams it, she's dreaming this.
And that is set up for the alternate ending, that scene.
Oh, okay. You'll have to tell me about that because I don't remember it. But yeah. I did go back and rewatch this movie, but I didn't look at behind the scenes and stuff, which I've not done in a long, long time. But anyway, I don't know that the Matrix sequels ruined the reputation of that first movie so much as just, like, that franchise, as a franchise, doesn't have a reputation, so I'm not sure a lot of people, like a lot of younger people, went back and looked at it. I have no idea
hurt more because it's one whole series, right? Like Terminator, we've rebooted so many times.
Well, and at least like Terminator had 2 really solid movies, and so it felt like it was a franchise that was going somewhere. And with the Matrix, it had a great movie, and then immediately people were not happy with its sequels. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that kids don't like grow up and then go back and look at the Matrix these days. I don't know what happens with Terminator. Like I know you love these movies, but I don't know how much of like your generation and younger than that is looking at these movies at this point.
Yeah, well, and the thing you got to remember too is like my parents were still in high school when I was born, so like this was like really big when they were kids.
Sure.
Because my dad is basically John Connor in this movie, running around listening to Guns N' Roses and being a troublemaker.
That's really funny. Well, of course, it also has just a completely different sort of history than The Matrix did, where like there's a lot of like a space between movies, year-wise, and the sequels for The Matrix were trying to immediately expound on that rather than just telling the same story over and over again. And after Terminator 2, it just couldn't get away from the success. Like, the nice thing about the sequel, and this doesn't happen very often, I mean, I would argue that this is probably in the top 5 or maybe even top 3 of successful sequels ever made, not just in box office, but in just the quality of the work. And I think part of what made it easier for Cameron to make this kind of movie is because he's not feeling pressure based on how popular that first movie is. It's really easy to go into this and go, we're going to make something that is bigger and better, and actually manage that, as opposed to just going, well, people love that first movie, so we have to deliver like a whole lot more of the same. And so it was easier for him to kind of, go a different direction with this, where it's not, the same kind of sci-fi horror that was, and it's more of an epic film, and the emphasis is more on the science fiction.
Yeah, for sure. In this scene, I think, like, this opening, both with Arnold and the T-1000, are building on our expectations from that first film, where Arnold, shows up and fights, like, some, the first one's like a gang, and this one it's, like these bikers, and then Kyle and the T-1000 are the ones that have to deal with the cop, and I feel like they're playing on that because, unless you saw the trailer, because it was spoiled there, you're probably still thinking that Arnold's the bad guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I don't think very many people at all could have come into this movie and not known that he was supposed to be a heroic character this time around.
Yeah, well, in this one, like, Arnold's become a star by this point.
Yeah.
Because he's had, like, Total Recall, Predator, like, all the stuff in between both movies.
Well, and that was another thing I was going to say about how impressive this production is in not letting like popularity and fame get to it, because that's not going to happen as much in this case with that first movie, because it was not a huge movie, and it was made as a smaller, not exactly underground thing, but like it's not a huge film, but Arnold easily could have had like a Shatner type ego and gotten way in the way of this movie. I mean, he wasn't gonna do the film if he couldn't be a heroic character, if he had to be the villain, and so they had to contrive a way to make that work, and luckily they were creative about it, and I buy it as much as I'm going to, but he's not always on screen. Like, this is not his story. He's not the protagonist of this film. He does have sort of an arc. I mean, he does change, certainly. I mean, he learns about humanity. He becomes kind of that classic, Asimovian like human robot. But it really is Sarah Connor's story still, just like that first movie was.
Yeah. And this song is the ultimate song of evil machines for me, because this is both Terminator and Christine.
Oh, that's really funny, because I've still never sat through Christine. I should do that at some point.
Yeah, this is kind of the theme to Christine. So, I don't know, just evil robots in the song.
That's really funny. Yeah, I borrowed that from my mom years ago, and I've still never bothered to watch it.
I bought it the one day, and then a week later I bought it again because I forgot I bought it the first time.
I did that recently with the Season of Krypton.
Oof.
Unfortunately. Yeah, I now have 2 copies of Krypton Season 2.
Yeah, here at the T-1000 we're getting like the cop showing up to investigate, just like we did with Kyle Reese in the first movie.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that, the good Terminator is kind of taking the place of Kyle Reese here. Obviously not in that he's going to have a romance with Sarah Connor, but in that he's the kind of like, macho male figure that is going to help her out, but it's not going to be his story.
Yeah, well, we get...
And also that he's the guy from the future, and, he's the one who's sent back by John.
About the future.
Say it again.
Said he takes that place of giving exposition for the future.
Yeah.
And stuff like that as well.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do as much of that, I don't think, because he's basically just there to give us a recap for the first movie.
Mainly in the one scene, yeah.
I think one of the reasons this movie was so successful was because regardless of having the number 2 in the title, it did not require you to know that first movie. And I think a lot of people went into this not knowing that first film. I think it could have been a Dark Knight situation if the number 2 wasn't in the title, where people wouldn't have even realized there was a first movie, and all the events of that would just play as back matter that's described by a character without feeling the need to go to any flashbacks. I'm also kind of impressed that we never get a frame of footage from that first movie.
Yeah, well, I wonder if maybe that's like a copyright issue. Because Evil Dead has that.
Yeah, because I didn't know about the copyright thing, so that was a point I was going to make before I knew about that. So, but I mean, so if they're not relying on it because they can't, then that's a nice happy accident. But
yeah,
art through adversity, I guess.
Yeah, and that cop thing, having the T-1000 get the cop car, obviously allows us to skip the whole phone booth segment from the first movie.
Mutele, they could have had a romance, Cap, based off Dark Fate. Ugh.
That should have been the third movie. Skynet sends the Arnold back to become John's father in like 1984.
Oh no! His parentage just gets like so confusing. Nobody even knows whose father it is. Like every movie, we just retcon that. It's like, no, I'm your father. No, I'm your father.
Yeah, then like 16 movies down the line, there's just a part where Arnold goes, "I remember when I was your father."
Todd.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a good establishing. Wow, that shot is very Back to the Future.
Yeah.
In that neighborhood.
I'm surprised they don't use that song more, because like that was like the theme for this, and it's barely in this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good establishing scene for that kid, because it gives you a really good sense of what you're getting yourself into with that character.
Yeah. And I also think that like it's interesting that he's kind of rebelling against his like kind of society and his surrogate parents when obviously that's what he's going to grow up to be.
Ah, that's a good point. Sure. I was going to mention this a second ago when we introduced the T1000, but I also think that, or we were bringing that cop. Did we actually see him be the cop already? I can't remember because we were talking over it.
Yes, because you see him get in the cop car and look up John Connor.
Yeah, that's right. So a couple things about that. I think it's really cool that when we see him again, he's in that uniform, and on first viewing, again, unless you've seen previews, you're not going to know what his abilities are, and it's going to look like a scene that doesn't track because he can't have taken that guy's clothes. So you're going to be like, how does he have those clothes? And then later you're going to find out that he can actually make himself look like that. So that's really cool.
He knocks out the cop and then he's like standing over him, and then we cut away. So I think they're wanting us to think that he took the cop's uniform.
I thought there was something about it though where he couldn't have, where like.
Oh well, he stands over and he takes the cop's gun, and then we cut away.
Yeah, I thought it was implied that like he leaves at that point, so he didn't take the clothes. But I'm probably bringing this up because I showed this to Brandon for the first time, and he was confused by that. He was like, he can't have had his clothes, and I'm like, you don't know that the T1000 is a shapeshifter, do you, Brandon? So I thought it was cool that it got him with that, but maybe he just wasn't paying attention. I'm not sure.
That scene that we just saw, I have like a few issues with that because he talks about how Sarah just stabbed him in the knee, but she's going to be surprised, and they're not going to mention that when they get to her review in a few scenes.
Oh,
and she's
yeah.
going to be very surprised that they're not putting her in minimum security when she just stabbed a doctor.
Like recently? Because she's like, I've been on my best behavior for 6 months.
Yeah, and he's like, a few weeks ago, she stabbed me.
That's a good point. Yeah, that doesn't quite track.
It's they want to have that joke, but they needed to work out that timeline a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like this kind of perversion of authority that we get with the T1000 pretending to be a cop, where like in the future, the machines have taken over and they see themselves as the authority and as the rightful oppressors, and he's going to come back and he's going to pretend to be someone who protects and serves and cares about us. I like the perversion of that.
For sure, and Robert Patrick is like great as like he's just so unsuspecting.
Yeah,
he's not a 6 foot Austrian man that stands out in a crowd.
No, that's amazing casting.
Yeah.
Oh, here come the mullets.
Yeah, this movie, like the first movie's so 80s, and this one is so 90s.
So 90s, yeah. It's like Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Oh well, I've never seen Bill and Ted 2, so.
It's as 90s as the first movie was 80s, but even crazier than this because they come out like 2 or 3 years apart. One's at the tail end of the 80s, one's at the very beginning of the 90s, and there's like this huge difference in cultural touchstones and just tone.
Like there's like a good 6-7 years between films.
Yeah, 84 to 91, 92.
Yeah, I think 91 because Pet Sematary 2 is 92, I think.
This is another one of those movies that again, like Jurassic Park, stands the test of time, and it's easy to kind of forget what year it was made in. And then you go back and you see lesser movies from this period, and even up through like 94, 95. You look at like this is low-hanging fruit or not fair, but you look at things like Roger Corman's Fantastic Four in 1994, and you're like, that looks like a movie that was made in 1981 compared to something like this. Like, how in the world did this come out as early as it did? It's amazing. I had that with Back to the Future also. You look at other movies that came out around that same time.
Stan Winston did the effects for both this and Jurassic Park, and he's an amazing special effects artist. And he did the first Terminator as well, so you can just see, how much he was able to do with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
He also did Predator. He did quite a few movies around this time.
As a sequel, another thing that this does really well is, retains a lot of what made the first thing great, but one of the reasons that it's able to be, superior than the original is that it's it goes into a little bit of a different genre. It's kind of like Winter Soldier in that way. And
Yeah.
Alien and Aliens had that, although I don't think Aliens is a superior film to the first one necessarily.
Yeah, I don't, but like Aliens is still good in its own right. And well, and this one, I think like this is a movie I think you can watch with kids. I don't know if the first one is.
Yeah, kids that are old enough. I mean, certainly there's some swearing and there's a couple of like really rough bits. But as far as like gore and stuff goes,
Yeah.
but at least for the time, at least compared to other things that were on. Of course, this was rated R. I believe this was rated R.
It is rated R, yeah, but I always think of this as a movie you can watch with kids.
It's
even
kind
though
of a
it's
tame,
R-rated.
and a lot of kids watched this. And I mean, I saw
Yeah.
this when I was a kid. Everybody I knew was really into this movie. I don't think it was merchandised to children like RoboCop was. Or at least the sequels. Like some other movies that really weren't meant for children, and it was kind of weird that we were kind of aiming them at them. But it was, but I mean, it had popular video games and things. Like there were other things that kids were wanting that were related to this.
Yeah. Yes, this is the review scene where they don't mention that she stabbed him.
Yeah, that's really funny. I kind of forgot about that, and it's only a
And
couple of scenes ago that we talk about that.
and there is a deleted scene in between this from the director's cut where we get to see Kyle Reese. Where
From
they
the
drug
extended
her-
cut or the director's cut?
in the director's cut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if that's the one I had. Yeah, where we get to see Kyle Reese, and he warns her that John's in danger, which is maybe a little strange.
Yeah, Hawk
then-
Flame. I knew there was a T2 action figure line, but beyond that, like I don't know how hard we were aiming at kids, but
That wouldn't surprise me. I think Aliens also had a toy line.
yeah. But I guess that's enough, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess we did stuff like that. Like Rambo and RoboCop both had cartoons,
Yeah.
and it's probably better than Rambo for a kid to watch.
And RoboCop also, as wonderful as the satire as that is.
Yeah, I love RoboCop.
Although, I mean, I've let Jason watch RoboCop now, but and Jason loves this movie. He's seen this 3 times now, and whenever I've needed to watch it, he's always wanted to watch it with me.
I bet I loved this movie as a kid too. Like,
Yeah, Hawk
I don't-
Flame.
it's not
Toxic
like-
Crusaders was one of the weirdest ones that you would make something for kids based on trauma anything. It's insane. I've always liked Joe Morton. He is he's in Smallville. I think that's the first place that I remember really seeing him in anything outside of this. And then he goes on later to Eureka. He's had a good TV career as a character actor and recurring roles and things. And he's a mainstay in that show. But he's wonderfully endearing in this, and probably the most
he's a
likable
really
character in the
great-
film.
He's a really great tragic character, I think, in this movie. Where he ultimately has to pay for the sins he didn't commit.
Yeah, or sins, I guess, retroactively once you know where they're going to go, because like his heart's in the right place. And obviously, later on, when Sarah has that speech about the atomic bomb and how people are irresponsible making things like that, and all they know how to do is destroy. Like, he's not trying to destroy. He's just, and it's even different than the hydrogen bomb, because with that, it's like we're building a thing specifically to be destructive. Like, he's just working on AI.
Yeah.
Like, he's not meaning for that to necessarily be used for the military or anything. It's just basic scientific progress. And
he's not destroying anything. He's creating something in his mind.
Yeah, and his mistake to her is that she knows what's going to happen because of it, and he should have the foresight for that, and she'll of course invoke a gender thing and say that like you don't understand what it's like to create because you've never had anything grow inside of you, which is a really interesting take, and I guess we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like the idea that a mother, dealing with life growing inside of her for 9 months and having that kind of connection and like caring about life for the sake of life might make a woman think differently about that than a man. I wonder historically how well that tracks when it comes to scientific developments.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I've always found it funny that she starts saying that, and John immediately shuts her down.
Yeah, this is not constructive. He says, okay, so this is a little bit convenient. He's gonna find John at some point anyway, so it's not a big deal, but it's a little easy that he's just driving around and there he is.
Eventually I will find him. He lives in this town. It is pretty convenient, yeah. I'm assuming they probably just didn't want to have to go through the phone booth. Although I guess you wouldn't have been able to find John on the phone booth.
I like that Robert Patrick's... Is it Patrick or Patterson?
Patrick.
Robert Patrick is... And I've seen him in other things after this. He's still acting. He shows up and stuff. He's a character actor.
Yeah, I've seen him in a few things.
I forget what. Like, nothing that's sticking with me right now.
He's the main villain in the John Cena movie, The Marine, which I thought was awesome as a child.
That's funny. I've never seen that. But anyway, I like that the T-1000 is advanced in every possible way. Like, he's really good at fitting in and making people think that he's a real person. Like, he's got a natural affect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, again, nobody came in expecting this, but the movie, I think, wants us to think that Arnold's the bad guy and he's the good guy. And I think that goes into it, too, where he's more natural than Arnold is.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Davis. I know he's Doggett in X-Files. I was just talking about, like, in really recent years. Like, I know I've seen him in something in just, like, the last 5 or 6 years, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him in something more recent, too.
But yeah, that's the other thing that people know him from, for better or worse. A lot of people don't like Doggett. I never really cared for him, either. And I think he pops back up in the X-Files revivals. At least that first revival season. I don't know if I'm right about that, though, because it's terrible, and I have pushed that away from my mind as much as possible. These are all real video games, by the way. Afterburner is a thing I played in the arcade when I was a kid.
I love this visual gag with Arnold. Where
with the flowers?
Yeah, he's got Guns N' Roses.
Well, I feel stupid. I never thought of that.
Because we even hold it on for a second.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, and the box is gold, and the ring around their symbol is gold.
Wow.
Which I just thought of right now.
So that whole thing is intentional. That's great. Oh, he wasn't in the new X-Files. Okay. Thanks, Daniel. So this is another scene that would surprise you if you had somehow been able to go into this, like a really, really hyped movie not knowing anything. That he comes up and pulls his gun, and you're supposed to expect him to shoot the kid, but he's actually going to shoot the real bad guy. And to be fair, you don't...
Because this movie knows that Arnold gunning down John Connor right now would be very dumb.
Well, yes, that is true. So that's an example of a really cool practical effect. I love that they just made a jacket with the bullet holes.
Yeah.
That was like
this.
This.
How much footage they have with Robert Patrick jumping back like that? There has to be a lot of it. It happens in every scene where they fight him.
Yeah, and just walking around on set having to wear that costume of I just got shot by something. Now I'm gonna take this jacket off. I've seen that in person, by the way. The Hollywood Casino in Tunica, Mississippi. I don't know if it still has it, but it used to have it. That is awesome foreshadowing. That's one of my favorite moments in the movie.
It's great.
When he stands next to a mannequin that's got a silver phase. And again, if you've missed previews and stuff, and you actually get to watch this, totally blind, you're not gonna know that that's foreshadowing and what that's building up to. And it's even possible that you wouldn't know which guy is the bad guy, which I think is intentional. Because they both have a parallel track getting to John, where both of them attack someone or get attacked at the beginning and appear to maybe take someone's clothes, and they're both after the same guy. And it's you don't know which one is going to be the good guy. You can be fairly sure that they're not both working together, because why would they have landed in different places and stuff? But
yeah. And that fight scene where they throw Arnold through the glass, that's basically exactly how the first fight scene between Kyle and the Terminator ends in the first movie. They both end with Arnold going through the glass of a store and landing like that.
Something I meant to mention when we see him land at the beginning is I love that effect of the time travel device ripping off part of a truck. That's really cool.
It's really cool, yeah.
And like you suggested earlier, just ramping up all the details, all the visual ideas that we couldn't do with a lower budget first time around. We might have done stuff like that if we could have afforded to.
Yeah, that movie, of course, is very limited by its budget.
And then we're pushing so many envelopes with visual effects here that even if we'd had the money in 1984, there's stuff that we're doing here that we couldn't have done. Somebody earlier mentioned that this is Cameron coming off of The Abyss, and the whole T-1000 idea and the notion that they could even create that all in a computer comes from the one shot they did like that in The Abyss.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I was reading into it, yeah.
Which I've never seen, and people say it's not really that great. It's not really worth watching, but
I haven't seen that or True Lies.
Oh, I've seen True Lies.
So the T-1000 would have been able to kill John Connor here if he was listening to Sheena as a punk rocker, just like Pet Sematary. It all comes back.
I don't know if it's this scene or not, because I was looking away for a second, but I think this is the bit where he gets in this truck, and then there's this weird cut that's kind of confusing, where a guy seems to just jump out, but I think it's supposed to be implied that he got pushed out. I'm not really sure. He just jumps out. He's like, ah! But you don't see a scene where he's shoved, so I don't really know what's going on there.
And the scream he does is really funny, because it's just so like, ah!
There's another one like that in the third act, too.
Oh, the helicopter, yes. That part's hilarious.
It's like, get out. And then even though he knows he's jumping, he still does that scream. It's great.
It's like the special edition of Empire, where they add the scream for Luke.
There's also something of an odd sound effect when that car got hit just now. It was
Yeah.
That gun flip that Arnold does there on the bike is amazing.
It's so cool.
Where he does that, yeah.
Yeah, every time I see a shotgun like that, I just want to do that gun flip.
In interviews, he is always talking about how important it is for him to know how all the guns are actually used in movies like this. Not just Terminator, but everything he's in. It's got to be believable.
Well, Linda Hamilton, apparently, she trained with the guy who invented the Uzi.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he trained her how to, use the guns and stuff, because it was, of course, very important for her as well.
See, some early action movies, I say early action movies, it feels real early these days. We don't make action movies like this anymore. But it's... Movies back then, when they did slow motion, tended to have a better sense of when it's effective to do that, and not constantly relying on it just to look dramatic and exciting. It's legitimately it's legitimately a good call when he's coming down on that motorcycle and he scrapes the bottom and that sparks. That's a good use of slow motion.
Yeah. Yeah, we do so much where we like speed up, slow down, the speed ramping with action now. I
Mutale,
love
was
that
it?
they when they crash the truck that they put a model in it, so you can see the like Model T1000 bump around in the truck. I just think that's really funny.
Jason always laughs at this scene just because he thinks it's funny to watch Arnold pull a gun on a
On a
tire
tire.
coming at him. Yeah. Mutale says, wasn't Linda Hamilton's twin a stunt double in this? Yeah, I think
Yes,
that's
she
right.
is. In the scenes where there's two of them, the one that's farthest from the camera is always her twin sister, who just died like a few months ago.
Oh, wow, that's sad.
Yeah. Actually, I think less than that. I think she died like right after Chadwick Boseman died.
Wow.
So it was
I
pretty
hadn't heard
recent.
that. So,
If
of
it's
course,
that's what they do with the later on. There's that guy at the vending machine or coffee machine, and there's two of them. That's also a situation where they use twins.
oh, interesting. So we should talk about the first, big effect that we get for the T1000. It's one of probably the most dated shots in the movie, but for '91, it looks spectacular. And I think one of the most impressive things about it, like the textures are a little bit off, but like when you see that kind of thing these days in television, I think that's on par with today's television at least. I mean, that's
Yeah, that thing never really
pretty
bothers
impressive.
me. I think it looks all right. Like it's obviously I don't think
No, it
it's
doesn't bother me at all. It's just if I look at it and really kind of scrutinize it, I'm like, I mean, if we made that now,
Yeah.
we could certainly make it look better. But
Sure.
the thing that's impressive about it to me, and we have this all throughout, is how smooth the transitions are when we do the morph back to human, and that's what really sells it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really great, and I'm assuming they probably just have him there, and they're like doing the CGI over him.
Stussy says Terminator could have gotten an Animatrix Gotham Knight type movie. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I think animation is a good place to try to take this franchise since we don't know what else to do with it, and all we're
Well,
doing
we
is
almost
constantly
thought that
repeating
after
ourselves.
Salvation.
Yeah, I think you talked about that last time, or when we did Sarah Connor,
It
I
was
forget.
the other
but-
day we were just talking on the Discord.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there was an animated film. It was going to be a reboot called Terminator 3000, and it ended up being canceled.
I just think the best thing to do, not that I want to spend the whole time talking about the like potential future of this franchise, but it's really hard not to go to that, Sam Austin.
Yeah.
I think you just want to do something a little bit more under the radar. I think like expectations and trying to bring in the crowd that's like really nostalgic for the first two movies, but especially this one still is what keeps holding it back. Like if we could just
100%, yeah.
get like really creative and not be so worried that if certain iconography is not constantly there, people are going to check out. Like that, and that's why Sarah Connor works so well, because like some of that iconography obviously is there, but we're a lot more concerned with like figuring out how to really tell our own story with that than like just constantly superficially going, remember T2? Remember the three things people remember about Terminator 1? Like it's not doing that. And when it does go back to that stuff, it's super creative with it. Like it's really clever about it. And that's why that show is loved so much, I think, because there's a lot of subtlety in characterizations, and that's not what you expect from this franchise. But what you did get from
I think
this.
that's one thing I can give to Salvation, even though I don't think it works ultimately. It's not just this. If we're not having to just relive this one and the first one again.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it wants to be Mad Max before it wants to be Terminator, but at least it's not just this.
What the Terminator does here in using a different dog name is really smart.
Oh yeah, I think that's a really clever writing. It's something that I think most people wouldn't think about.
And not a thing that the machines probably would be capable of doing, at least when they built the T800. I mean, I guess the T1000 is clever and might think to do things like that. But I guess the point I was going to make is, I'm talking myself out of my own argument. I guess the point I was going to make is that feels like flashes of John Connor. That feels like he's able to do that because of who he was programmed by.
Yeah, that could be.
And that's probably the most horrifying shot in the entire movie.
Yeah, this is the part where you maybe have to get your kids to look away.
Made tempered a little bit though by the fact that the milk carton is on the other end of that knife, because that's just hilarious.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate carnage thing, and we won't get that because that movie will be PG-13.
I think the exposition is done really deftly all throughout this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it never feels like it's bogged down in having to explain things.
And when it does, there's a lot of character behind it, and like you're liking these people, and they're fun to listen to. So that kind of helps the exposition not to feel too exposition-y, because it's always in like kind of a banter kind of way. And like whenever the Terminator is explaining things to John, you've got that kind of layered thing of like what is this relationship going to be between them, and at the same time as John is like listening to him explain things, he's also discovering that he's able to like use this robot, and that he can tell him what to do, and like you give a little kid that green light, and what's he gonna do with it? Like all that stuff gets really fun, and all that's kind of mixed in those explainy sections.
For sure. This scene really makes me want to get some Subway.
Is that the only product placement in the film?
Yeah, and it's really weird product placement because it's just there.
I honestly didn't even realize that was Subway until you pointed it out.
I didn't notice it until I was watching this again last night.
Because Subway has a way more subtle logo back then.
Yeah, well, and it's just, like I said, it's just kind of there. Like, they don't really draw attention to it. The logo's even cut off on that cup.
Oh, Brandon in the comments there says that Pepsi was another product placement.
Oh, okay.
By the way, welcome, Brandon Pepler. That's not a name I recognize. You can see the machines and cans. Oh, yeah, okay. Fair enough. But see, we've talked about this in other commentaries, but I love that kind of product placement because there's a fine line between, are you trying to sell me something, or are you trying to make your movie feel authentic? Because I see Pepsi every day. So whenever you replace it with something generic and made up, it's quicker to take me out than to make me go, oh, you're just doing product placement. When you actually use the real stuff, unless it's like really blatant and right in your face.
Yeah, if it's like an Adam Sandler movie where there's like 16 Coke logos at the front of the camera, it's like, okay, this is a little too much.
Or Spider-Man 2 with Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Hawk Flame, does Afterburner count as product placement? Yeah, absolutely it does. But there's also all these other video games in there that I didn't mention, and it's not shilling for one particular company because there's Space Invaders and a bunch of other things. So it's not all. I think Afterburner is Sega. It's not all just Sega.
Yeah, it just kind of feels natural in that moment.
They just went to an actual arcade that had those games, and I'm sure somebody had to pay for licensing and stuff, but. So the writing for this kid is really believable, and I think and whenever I'm taken out and I'm not buying things that John is doing, it's kind of more the actor just being inexperienced, I think, than it is the script, because he
wasn't in anything before this.
And this is an introducing credit. It's introducing Edward Furlong, and this is... The writing wise, I think one of the more believable 12-year-olds I've seen in movies like this, in like rated R action things, because you can't just like generically try to write him like any kid, like living in the suburbs going to public school. Like, he was obviously raised very differently in like survival mode by a single parent, and so. He's like constantly swearing and trying to act really macho, and like I buy all of that. He's been forced to grow up too soon, but he's also not totally grown up yet either, because he doesn't have a consistent role model. That is hard stuff to write, and I think the script at least nails that.
Yeah, and like I said, he had no desire to even act before this movie, apparently.
Oh, interesting.
So I think it's amazing that he's even as good as he is.
So these kind of thugs or just like kind of street punks in the scene are
Jack Burton from
really it's a really odd situation, right? Because the reason they come over is to help this kid. I think that's so funny. Where it's like, oh man, this guy is tormenting this kid. We got to come over and help. And then the kid pisses them off. They're like, well, now wait a minute. Now we're gonna beat you all to hell. It's really funny.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And I love this where John like values human life, so he doesn't want the Terminator to kill people.
Yeah, that's the big thing that's been instilled in him from his mother. And
Yeah.
And I also love the reversal we'll have later where he has to remind her of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because she becomes the Terminator.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also think that this ends up leading to some of the best stuff with Arnold. Like, we're about to get one of like my top 5 just Arnold one-liners in general.
And I love that there's also a reversal there where this is a kid who, again, is still very much a kid. I mean, like he's, like I said, he's been forced to grow up too quickly, but he's not there yet, and he's still immature, and yet he's very much got this regard for life that even some adults have a difficult time with, as we see throughout the movie. And in that moment, it switched around where Arnold is the kid, where the Terminator is the kid, because he's doing that like 5-year-old thing where no matter what you say, the kid says why, and I love that moment. That's great. This is maybe the most disturbing moment in the whole film. It's just this guy licking Sarah Connor.
It's real weird.
It's messed up.
It feels like something out of like a Rob Zombie movie or something. It's very strange.
Yeah, that's real B horror. And of course, he's got to get his comeuppance later after we do that.
Yeah.
There's those sorts of moments, of course, in both of these movies. The first two are few and far between, but there is this kind of underlying thing of like the ways that men stereotype women, and we're pushing against that, we're fighting against that, but we're not super preachy about it, and we don't make it like the only thing the film has going for it. But it's moments like that where it's saying like we live in a world where people don't think about women right. And I also think that some of that, though, in this particular instance, has to do with what a mental institution can do to you if you work in it too long.
And speaking of Sarah Connor, I think one of the best things about her is that it's not just like, oh, look, she's, an awesome, like a badass female character, like she can play with the boys. They also keep her femininity.
Yes.
And I think that's like really important. It's not just like, the girl from say like Blade Trinity, where she's just female Blade.
Yeah, because that's too easy, right? And it doesn't ring true, and it's unbelievable. It feels like cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, with this,
it goes
a very strong character.
It goes against
the fact that she's feminine,
and it goes against the point of trying to be progressive about that, right? Like if you're saying that you have to take something away from a woman for her to be a strong character, then you're kind of defeating the whole purpose in the first place. Like you can be strong and effeminate in exactly the same way that that a man can be vulnerable and still masculine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
And the best female heroes definitely have that. And I don't mean stereotypically effeminate, just effeminate, just believably that is still a woman, not someone just written by a guy who doesn't understand women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably a hard balance, but it's definitely something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've actually been thinking about making like a top 5 or top 10 list of those characters.
Well, I mean, James Cameron was involved with 2 of them.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Ripley would have to be in there. Buffy's in there. I think more recently for me, Tomb Raider might be in there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen Buffy or Tomb Raider, so...
This is the bit with the T-1000 that I still think is almost today worthy.
Yeah,
when he comes out of that floor, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and this is the part I was talking about where they're two twins. Because I assumed that it was just, the same actor and we just shot it twice.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was just a screen split.
Yeah.
Which Alita might be in there for me. She'd certainly be in top 15 or 20. I don't know if she'd make the 10, but yeah, she'd be up there.
Yeah, and I think Uma Thurman and Kill Bill is one of them.
And I've not seen those.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to do that at some point.
They're, I think, probably Tarantino's weakest, but I still like them.
Now, I do think that those
if
textures
this guy's made to be creepy because she's gonna have to assault him to get his keys and get out.
Yeah.
So we make him look bad. So it's not just like, look, she beat up this good person.
Yeah, it must be the reason we put that in there, but it does feel a little contrived. Like, we just got to throw that scene in there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this movie's not above contrivances. It does have a few, but I think ultimately, like, it works despite them.
They're all minor.
Yeah.
And some of them are inside of particular conceits in the first place, Like, there's a couple in the sci-fi premise of this, and we haven't gotten into the convoluted time travel of Terminator stuff yet. We talked about that some with the first movie, and I don't want to retread too much of what we talked about there. But you've got things in the premise that are kind of gimmies, right? Like, why let time move on some before you send anybody back to kill John Connor or to protect John Connor? Like, why not just go back to just before the last time, or
just at the same time? Like, you could just send 6 Terminators to 1984.
Yeah. Which is kind of what Genesis does, I guess, but
yeah. I still haven't seen that.
When it just reboots the whole franchise by starting in all the same places as all the stuff that everybody remembers from the first 2 movies.
Yeah.
Do you think
the big soft reboot?
Do you think any of this action is kind of slow and drawn out, or do you find it all pretty thrilling and worth watching? Because when we see, like, there are several scenes like this where we see every single step of a process of escape or of I don't know, like breaking and entering and stealing something.
I think it really works. I don't know. Why do you have an issue that it goes on too long?
No, I just could see why somebody might.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I think it's ultimately pretty thrilling, and I think with that, having her sneak around too is kind of important. It's not just you just see her beating up different people.
Oh,
and the shot where she sneaks past the T-1000 is pretty good.
I wondered about that. Brandon Pepler says that there's actually another scene that was deleted with that guy who had the weird licking thing where he does other things, so it's not just that one token moment with him, and says that that was payback for a scene where she was subdued and forced to take the meds to sedate her.
Yes, because that's when I forgot that we didn't see that. Yeah, that's when we see Kyle Reese.
Oh, okay.
She gets drugged up, and then she sees Kyle Reese, and she runs through the facility, and walks out the door, and you see the playground. And the shot where right before she goes through the door is very reminiscent of the shot where she runs up to the elevator, and it goes into slow motion.
I'm not saying it would have been bad for them to have kept that, but I like that they don't feel like they need it for the audience to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Tom just put in a $5 super chat. Thanks, man. I saw a special on digital effects once, and if I remember correctly, they were very apprehensive about if they would be able to do the floor scene. Yes, that was a big point of contention, where they were really afraid that wasn't going to work. And I think maybe somewhat ironically, it ends up at least in my estimation, being one of the easier shots to make look good. Like maybe in a computer it's hard to know if you're going to be able to make that scene work. But I think one of the reasons it looks more real than some other things is because you're not putting it on a real busy, complicated background, and it's almost surreal. And you just do this checkerboard floor, and I mean, like it's got some like stains and things on it, like they got to play with textures. But it seems like that's easier than trying to make a human being look like it's morphing into that or out of that on standing in broad daylight in like just a normal outdoor setting.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's kind of dark too in that shot.
Exactly.
Sarah walking with the needle in this guy's neck's pretty messed up.
Get her! Famous last words.
Go get her, Ray. Yeah, like I don't think any of this goes on too long. I think it's paced pretty well.
Well, and I think that
constantly changing too.
There's just a natural sense of like suspense and escalation. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Because we all know what we're here for. Like, we're waiting to finally get to the point where we're going to have, big Terminator fights. And we've got to get some groundwork done before we can get to that stuff. And I like that it's not rushed and there's not too many scenes of that forced toward the beginning. So we've already had some really exciting action, and it's that kind of movie. You want to do that. You wouldn't want like a whole first act that was nothing but talking before you get to that, just because it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah, which way you get in like a lesser film.
But I also like that in building anticipation, we get this huge car chase that for some movies could have been its climactic car chase, and it's the first big action scene we get in the whole movie. But some of the things that this has to accomplish, like it's got to recap that stuff from the first movie for people that aren't aware of it in a really natural way. It's got to reestablish Sarah Connor because she's in a different place in her life now, and it's got to make us kind of question her sanity a little bit. It's got to build John from the ground up. He's a brand new character that we talked about constantly as mattering in the future in the first movie, but we don't know what he's like as a kid. Then it's got a lot of, through those characters, we've got to build a lot of initial thematic groundwork as well.
Yeah.
Your what makes a man a man question, your why do we have regard for life? Why does that matter? How easy is it in survival to transform into your enemy? All of that stuff is there from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think because you were talking earlier about the use of slow-mo, I think that shot is really effective when she runs to the elevator and it goes into slow motion as Arnold comes out.
It's also awesome when you walk through the bars. Oh, something I meant to talk about a minute ago too is I love the bit where the Terminator breaks down, like, very economically, here's what the T-1000 can do, and here's what he can't do. We get rules right away. It's not that Superman 2 Richard Lester problem. Like right away we've got rules, and some of it reads a little bit arbitrary. Like, we've got to make sure that he's somewhat limited. Like, you could break it down and be like, I don't fully understand why he isn't able to do certain things we're told that he can't do, but we know what the rules are. And like, I really respect a story for playing fair with the audience like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it really holds to that, and all throughout, I can't think of any place where it's inconsistent. He is consistently held by those rules. So like I love that bit where he can't get his gun through because the gun is not part of him, and it tells us and like we have that explanation. It's sort of like a video game tutorial, but we also get that kind of like really good level game thing where the level in a video game is telling you how to play it, where we get information about how the T-1000 works also just by watching him. So like that tells us that he probably can't be too many things at one time either. Because I had that question the first time I saw this, where I was like, why couldn't he be a person and a motorcycle, like, at the same time? And it seems to just be one of his limitations. He just can't do that.
You wouldn't be able to do that because you would have, it's the same thing as like a gun or a bomb, where there's like different chemical reactions.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess he does say that he can't be anything that's moving parts, so he can be like simple machines. Now, I wonder about the floor thing, because one of the rules we're given is that he has to be something of comparable size, and I just don't know how exactly that works with a floor. Like, I guess it could go.
You just have to be stretched out pretty far.
Yeah, I guess that's how that works.
Yeah.
But my point is that they've thought of all these things, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because like you can get a movie where they don't fully think about all of that, or they're not consistent with their rules.
Yeah, Tom, they did do a Crypt the Freak that was like the T-1000 on Smallville. They had a blade guy. They had a guy who could just, but all he could do was turn his arms into blades. Somehow Meteor Rock mixed with whatever it was gave him specifically that ability.
That's a pretty great ability. This is a scene that gets parodied a lot too.
Just the music in the scene, or?
No, with the T-1000 running and like jumping after the car.
Oh yes, of course.
Just get that in like Wayne's World. There's a Simpsons episode where we do this. This is a scene we go back to a bit.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's easy to make fun of, but is also like really cool looking. Like, I like the way he runs.
Yeah, no, it's great. Because he's legitimately pretty terrifying in
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah, he's definitely like a classic slasher character. But what I love is you have to kind of remind yourself the places that this actually feels like a horror film, because like by and large it's not a horror film, but it's retained that from that first movie. It's just so well integrated into something, again, broader and grander.
Yeah, like we get elements of it. We're not forgetting all of that stuff.
Yeah, I was having a hard time figuring out a good way to articulate it, because all that, yeah, it's elements, because all those slasher things are embedded, but the overall tone of it doesn't feel like it's trying to scare me. It's almost like I'm in the scene with my characters, and it's not trying to do like the kind of first-person POV, like try to scare me. There's not jump scares. It's not like, oh no, are they gonna get attacked? Or are they gonna get hurt? Like, I don't know. It's different than that.
Yeah, well, he's just kind of like so like unstoppable. Like when he's running after them, and like the bullets are just kind of going and putting holes in him. Like I don't even know if Arnold could have kept going the way that he does. That and Arnold doesn't run very often. While Robert Patrick can just like, run after a car like the way he just did.
Yeah, you have slow-moving Terminators and fast-moving Terminators.
Yeah. Like Arnold's
it's
more
like if sentient zombies came back from the future, and they were just of different schools of zombie thought. But I mean, this is a great thriller. Like, I don't mean to say that I'm not afraid for my characters in a scene. Like, that's a lot of why this works, is that the stakes do seem high, and our characters do feel mortal. But it's not. I guess what I mean is it's not like haunted house stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really fast moving. Like, we really take our time with a lot of these action scenes, but there's also like always a lot going on in them. So like it's the pacing is quick in the actual moments of the scenes, but the scenes are long.
Yeah, well, and like we said with that escape scene, I guess that action scene does go on for quite a while, but it's constantly building on itself, and it never feels like you're in just the same action scene. Because we start with kind of, Sarah sneaking around, and then people are chasing her, and then the Terminators actually get involved, and then it turns into a car chase.
Yeah, because we're an hour in, and knowing where the movie's going, it's easy to feel like we haven't even gotten to the central conflict yet, but we have. Like, because the central conflict is, in my mind, as much about whether our protagonist and Sarah Connor is going to be able to retain her humanity as it is whether or not we're going to be able to, stop the machines from destroying the future. So we don't even know how they're going to attempt that yet. At this point, they're just in survival mode. It's just like stay away from the T-1000, and they don't even, know about the Miles Dyson stuff yet. And so that ends up just being kind of the second act plot point. And I guess the first act plot point is we got Sarah Connor out.
Yeah. Yeah, and this scene's pretty great where we get some more exposition on the Terminator and how they're made. And we get the whole bit where they have to like reset his switch in order for him to like learn. Which
Oh yeah.
I feel like we drop that in every sequel.
Which makes a lot of sense because the machines wouldn't have any reason to give it that in the first place.
Yeah, because, I mean, jumping towards the sequel, like, I don't think Arnold could have a family without resetting his switch like that.
Well, and then there's the question of, because we're so vague about how the machines work in the future, and of course this isn't canonical, but the Sarah Connor Chronicles was building a real mythology about that we weren't really getting in the movies. What's up?
Oh, did we cut the scene where they reset his CPU?
Yeah, I think so, because I didn't.
So everything I was just talking about is not in
Yeah,
this.
I didn't remember seeing that when I watched it this afternoon, but I had to get up a couple times, so I thought maybe I missed it or something. But I have seen that scene, which means I must have watched the extended version when I reviewed this years ago.
That's a huge shame. That's a really great scene.
But that's also why they can get away with not dealing with it in the sequels, because the theatrical version didn't have it.
There we go. Never mind.
I remember watching this earlier and thinking I feel like there's something that I wrote about dealing with the issues of humanity that's not in here, and that would be a big one.
That has one of my favorite lines from John Connor in this movie. That's a huge shame, because that's where they take it out, and Sarah Connor's going to smash it with a hammer, and he's like, no, like, if I'm supposed to be this leader, you need to listen to me for a change.
Yeah, Brandon, whichever version it was, I couldn't remember. I know I own the special edition, and I could not find that today. And I also had no idea how many people were going to have the other versions, and so that's why we're just doing the theatrical version. But yeah, this scene dates this a little bit, and yet that's okay, because this is one of those things where, yeah, it's a time travel thing, and it's about the specific date that we're in, and so, him using 90s slang and acting like that's how you look macho and cool.
We also, I don't think, go far enough that it's a problem. Like, it's not like he's like, Kawabunga, dude.
That's true, yeah. But all the stuff that he's saying would feel, of course, like really corny and cheesy to kids now. But I guess that's true of every era, like...
like that's always gonna happen. I still hear people say things like...
No kid... Even in the chill out, sure, but some of the other stuff he said, and like kids in, I don't remember them all because I'm not able to look at subtitles right now. But yeah, but kids, yeah, that's the big one that I thought was really funny. But even as a kid, I was scratching my brain a little bit, where I was like, really, I don't know anybody that talks like that.
John.
Like a kid now is gonna think that stuff's silly, but like when I was a kid and I went back and looked at Happy Days, like the Fonz is silly too, so like that's not cool anymore.
Yeah, Stephen Murphy, Talk to the Hand is in the third one. At least we don't go that far in this.
That's going a little far. Are we gonna keep going with Terminator after this? Can we just be done maybe?
We destroyed the sequels.
We can do them if we really want. I actually like 3 okay.
Oh, and we cut the smile scene, which has a very horrifying image in it, where Arnold scans the guy's smile.
I'm remembering that now that you say that. Yeah. So all of the he is developing the foundation for becoming more human stuff. Too much of that is gone now. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, like I said, the John Connor telling Sarah that she needs to listen to him because he's supposed to be this big leader, that needs to be in this movie. That's a huge shame they cut that.
But when you watch it without knowing all that, it holds together fine.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's fine. Like if you don't know that stuff, it's just now that I know it, that's a huge shame they cut that.
I've always been a big proponent for let the story be as long as it needs to be to tell the story in whatever medium you're in. Having said that,
Yeah,
I understand why in 1991 making a big action spectacle piece and not wanting people to have to know that first movie, you'd be a little bit leery of putting out a 2.5 hour movie. And kind of gutsy of them even to go as long as 2:15. I mean, that is a long movie in 1991, particularly for this genre.
well, when I first watched it, I was like, I can't believe this movie's 2.5 hours. That's really long for this time.
Yeah.
It makes so much more sense now.
Soul Dragon says 3 is watchable too. Cinematographic says 3 is nothing special. Yeah, I don't think it's offensively terrible. I don't think it's like the train wreck that some people talked about it like it was. And I think because this franchise has a reputation it does, people particularly do that now because they just rope it in with all of the really bad ones. But I mean, I don't think it's brilliant. It's certainly not T2, and it certainly feels superfluous and didn't really need to exist, with the exception of that ending, which I think is actually kind of inspired.
Yeah. Well, I think 3 and 4 also look better after 5 and 6.
If you actually go back and watch them. But people don't, and so they just rope them all together, I think.
They just rope them together, yeah.
I don't think there's been a lot of reassessing of these because kind of the refrain of the day is this franchise is dead, let it die, there's no reason to make any more. And I saw some people in the comments earlier saying that, and like I appreciate that sentiment, and I think it should probably lie dormant for a few years, if not a decade. But like, I think there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with Terminator, having watched 2 seasons of a TV show based on a thing that I wouldn't have thought had legs. And I just think it's disappointing that we haven't been able to get away from just constantly trying to remake this. Like I think as a serialized thing, it's really got legs. I want to see it get away from movies, and I want to see it get away from Schwarzenegger, because it doesn't need him.
Yeah.
And one of the things that holds it back is
everybody wants elderly Arnold at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that's not really a draw. That's not like nobody's going. Oh, you can't have. It's not like Indiana Jones but even that I don't agree with. But like, that you have to have Harrison Ford at this point.
Oh, I don't. I think having him for 5 is a huge mistake. Although I guess the big thing I hear about 5 and 6 is that Arnold's the best part of them. So I guess maybe it's good that he's stuck around because those are the movies they made. But yeah, no, I'd like to see them move away from that stuff at this point. And it feels so arbitrary too, where we now have to constantly find a reason for why he's old.
That's why I say that it's holding them back. Now, I also don't mean to imply that if there's a franchise I love, it needs to go on forever. I don't mean that either. Like I love Back to the Future. I don't need more Back to the Future movies necessarily. But I think that this is ripe for a reboot. Like I think that there's an interesting way to modernize this. Where we don't have to keep trying to make it fit with the original canon, where we just keep moving the goalpost for when Judgment Day happens. You just tell a new story where Judgment Day happens, like, in 2025, as opposed to, 1997.
Yeah. Well, and my go-to would just be to do the salvation thing and just do the actual war part.
Yeah. That too, but that also could be a reboot. Like, couldn't you... Well, of course. You know what I think would be really cool? Again, I don't mean to spend the whole time talking about this, but I don't know. It's interesting, like speculating about what you could do with it. I think maybe they should do the Planet of the Apes thing and do a prequel set in the future. So you eventually get to their version of the Terminator, but all the back matter prequel stuff you're seeing is actually in the future. Like that could be really cool.
That's too funny. I think this stuff with like they're kind of with these like like terrorist people, like domestic terrorist people
Yeah.
in Mexico. I think this stuff's kind of interesting in a sense that like this is where John would learn to do the guerrilla warfare style of fighting. So I think it's interesting that it's people like this that Sarah's like got him with.
Well, I think you come to understand like John and his upbringing a little bit better when you meet these people and you see just how differently he's had to live, and it makes him feel maybe a little bit less, whiny.
Yeah.
Like you don't want your protagonist to be whiny, but at the same time, he does kind of have something to complain about. And I'm not saying he spends the entire movie complaining, but there are scenes where he has that kind of what some people complain about, like the early Luke Skywalker thing, where it's like just something about the cadence of his voice, where it's just like, I've had a difficult life.
Are you an angel, Arnold Schwarzenegger? There's a line that comes up in the climax that reminds me of the now this is pod racing, except like not bad.
William Purcell says he's better than most kid actors. Yeah, and yeah. I agree with that. It's just some scenes more than others. The big glaring part for me is later on when he says there's no fate but what we make for ourselves. That line reading is really funny. She's gonna blow him away. It's just a little over the top. Yeah. He's overcompensating for lack of experience by trying to look like dramatic and theatrical and I don't know, excited about things, which is better than what some kid actors do because he actually has some energy, and so like he's able to cover for a multitude of sins by looking like he wants to be there.
Yeah.
Just as an actor.
Yeah, which like I said is amazing since this is his first thing, and he's had no experience.
Yeah, and you always take a risk when you hinge a story like this on a child actor, particularly one that is unproven like this. Yeah,
well, I mean, Star Wars, like Jake Lloyd, what had been in films before that point. Because I think like the Christmas one with Arnold's before that, isn't it? What's it called? What's the Christmas movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jake Lloyd?
Oh,
Turbo Man?
Oh yeah,
Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, Jingle All the Way. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I honestly didn't realize that's who was in that, so I didn't know what you're talking about for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
everyone in the comments is like, "It's Jingle All the Way, you idiot."
I didn't grow up with that movie. I don't know.
I saw it once and I hated it, and then I saw it on TV again like 10 years ago, and I really hated it. But yeah, another big difference between this and something like Episode 1 is that movie hedged all of its bets on a little kid, on a 9 or 10-year-old, and had no good reason for doing that. We didn't need that. We didn't need to see that character that far back. Like, I've always said that Episode 1 felt like dramatizing back matter. Like, you didn't need to see any of that dramatized. And this is the right story to tell with this character at this point, or at least they win me over on this idea because you have this kind of like surrogate parent thing with the good Terminator, and you want to see Sarah Connor have to be a mother and what that would be like, and it's more interesting than if he was like 6. Somebody earlier asked if we buy that this John is the guy who turns into what he turns into in Sarah Connor Chronicles, and we talked about that a little bit when we reviewed it. I think both of these characters are tweaked to some degree, although I would say, having gone back and watched this again recently in preparation for this, I bought it more than I did watching Sarah Connor in a vacuum.
Yeah, well, and John still keeps his whole, he's still very much like values human life, and I think with stuff like that, he still feels like the same character.
Well, that's true. His worldview and attitude about things is the same on paper, but I think the question is more like
With the actor,
does he seem like just in characterization like the way he's played like the same character? And I guess you could argue that we have an immature kid here who is more out of the mold of like that Danny kid from Ninja Turtles, from the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, and that like he grows up a little bit and he gets more responsible, and he's had, you know, a lot of places where he's had to take care of his mom as much as she's had to take care of him, and so he really has had some of that you know, maturing and growth that he's not had at the beginning of this, and so you could maybe see that character turning into that other character. That would be the argument I would make for it, but I would not have said that before I went back to this movie, because it did feel like a very different character to me. But I feel like Sarah Connor is even maybe more of a departure.
yeah, yeah, probably. I think she's more of a departure than John is.
And I think I mean, like, obviously, like, I love Hamilton in this movie, but like I think and it's not fair because I got to spend 2 whole seasons with her, but I think I like that character more than I like this character, if they are slightly different characters. I have a hard time buying that she is the same way in the in the crazy house, in the psych ward, in that show, as she is here. That's the place where she most feels like a different character to me. Where there's not any place where I'm really questioning her sanity. Like, it seems almost like it like less of like a and I realize she's not actually crazy, but there's that. I think there's supposed to be that implied question of, does she think that she's crazy for a minute? Where like, does she actually buy that all this happened, or has she been, you know, convinced to some degree that maybe it didn't really happen at some point? There's almost this like schizophrenic thing in a way that you don't get with her. It's almost like this is more schizophrenic. That show is more like depression, like chronic depression.
Yeah. The no fate thing is a bit of a retcon, because in this movie they talk about how that's what Kyle Reese told her. I guess a lot of that's in the director's cut, but they say that no fate is what Kyle Reese told her in the first movie, but that line actually is not in that movie.
I was gonna say, I didn't think he ever said that.
But
I don't care. Yeah.
He does say that the future isn't set, but the no fate line's not there. And yeah, his delivery with the she's gonna blow him away is hilarious.
Gonna blow him away. Yeah, it's great. But again, for not having worked before, and for the enormous pressure with the actors he's having to act against, I mean, he delivers a really good performance.
Yeah, and I like, even with that line, like, it's over the top, but I don't know, I don't really cringe. It just kind of makes me laugh. Which is kind of like a goofy line reading.
I'm jealous of this house. Miles Dyson has an amazing house. And then we just see it shot all to hell. It's so sad.
It's like the worst house if somebody's going to try to assassinate you. There's windows everywhere.
Well, that's true. And if he had survived this, he would probably become something of a survivalist like Sarah Connor because of Sarah Connor. Like, I imagine that he would move, like, underground, because he'd be afraid that machines were always after him, because something he was going to do would turn into Cyberdyne at some point.
You would just assume that? He's like, it was the machines that did it.
Just all the time. Like, I feel worse for the house than I do for this family and Dyson getting shot. Like, this whole time I'm just like, no, quit hurting this house. It's a great house. Tom, $5 super chat. Not to talk too much about the 3 and 6. Would it have been better if instead of a new person, the girl in 6 was one of his lieutenants mentioned in ... I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Short answer is, I guess, yes, maybe. Like, yeah, it might have been cool if that was following one of those characters. I don't know. I didn't like Dark Fate, and I've put it out of my mind as much as I can. And if we have to do a commentary on that, I'm gonna be I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna have Austin back for other things after that. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you suggested Terminator, so I think
I suggested
the
Terminator 1 and 2 and Sarah Connor Chronicles. That's what I suggested. I just don't want to do it, okay? But I mean, I will. I'm just telling you right now, I don't wanna.
We'll do it in a long time. We'll do it like 12 years from now. We'll do Dark Fate.
No, it's fine. I'll do it. It's just I know I'm gonna have to watch it again beforehand, and I don't want to do that because I found that movie really insulting, and I hated almost everything about it.
Yeah, for sure. I like how Sarah gets to the point where she's about to blow him
away!
And then kind of realizes how far she's come and that she's basically just become the Terminator.
Yeah, and I like that there's not really an impetus for it except just she's not too far gone yet and she's able to realize it in the moment. Like, we don't do anything sappy or insulting to the audience. Like, how easy would it...
Oh my god, you have a family like me.
Well, yeah, that would have been like me. Yeah, that would have been awful. But you know what else would have been really bad? So a couple things I could have imagined a lesser film doing, and a movie that didn't give its audience credit. One would be make that the place where she flashes back to something Kyle Reese said to her, right? Where it's like a forced ghost moment, right? We could have done that. And another thing we could have done was forced some way for the robotic hand to show up, because that would have been like the symbol of, oh no, I'm turning into a robot. And I really like that we also didn't do that.
At least like the child's name isn't Kyle, where they're like, Kyle, go to your room.
Wait, Kyle, why'd you say that name?
Your son is my ex-boyfriend.
From the future.
And of a different race.
I also like that, I don't know, like this is some really nice subtle writing, and a really cool kind of character juggling act, where it really matters because he cares so much about the sanctity of life, regardless of what the ends are and whether they justify the means, right? So it really matters that John tries to come to her rescue. It also matters that she ultimately doesn't need him to do that. Like, both of those things need to happen, and I think that's one of the reasons that this movie resonates as much as it does. I think the scene has a lot to do with the success of this movie as a story.
If he needed to save her, I think it throws her character under the bus.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could have written that in such a way where I would have believed it, but I just think that this works better.
Yeah.
Having not seen what the other version would be, like, you could see him show up, but that would be the kind of like the cheaper TV way to do it, right? Where like, there's a scene like this at the end of the Birds of Prey TV show. You have a character where, somebody is about to kill someone. Oh no, you're gonna be just like them. You don't want that to happen to you. Like, you could have had that speech, where he comes in. It's like, you don't want to turn into them, but like, we all know what that means. It's so cool that we didn't even have to come out and say it out loud. That you like, and I also just appreciate when I'm allowed to do like some of the analysis of the story without the movie having to deconstruct itself. Where like, you at the very beginning of this commentary brought that up and said she turns into the Terminator. We didn't need somebody to come out and say that. It's clear in the piece. She turns into the Terminator for a moment.
Well, we feel the need to like mention that the Terminator is John's surrogate father. So I think it's good we don't have to have a voiceover where she stops and goes, oh, well, I became the Terminator now.
Well, where does it come right out and call him a surrogate father?
He's teaching Arnold how to do the high five, and we get a voiceover from
oh, yeah, that's
Sarah
true.
Connor, and she's like, Arnold will never beat him like a dad would. He would always be there for him.
You know what else I love? Just looking at the scene, I hadn't thought about this before. Sarah Connor doesn't look like she's wearing makeup right now. And, like, obviously the actress has to be a little bit in being on screen, but, like, the movie's not afraid of her not always looking attractive and sexy and stuff.
Which is a big thing that we do with, like, the badass female characters that are still always made up.
Yeah. And which this very franchise will do later on some in being really progressive and trying to backtrack its own, like, you know, over masculinity in a franchise that didn't have that problem and was a pioneer for that kind of thing. But let's pretend like it wasn't. Dark Fate is awful.
Well, it'd be like, because every Alien sequel that doesn't have Sigourney Weaver, or I guess mostly prequels and Alien vs. Predator, they always have to have the strong female character, but at least they never go out of their way to be like, look how progressive we are. Like Terminator does. I don't know.
Yeah, but this movie's not doing that.
No, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's Dark Fate.
It's definitely not patting itself on the back for that. And it's bold about it, and, like, I don't know, it's not preaching to a choir. Like, it doesn't. I don't want to say that it's like a super politically motivated movie. I was about to say, like, it doesn't care if you agree with its politics, but, like, I guess I do want to say that. I guess I want to stand by that. Like, it is saying something about gender roles, and if you don't agree with it, it hopes that maybe it can make you think about it differently. But, like, it's not about to change anybody's minds. It's just making a point about something and also telling a story at the same time. And
yeah.
It's really sad that I have to break that down these days, but we have, you know, so many things these days that are not interested in doing that. And I think that, like, the important thing is just saying the right things, as opposed to, well, anyway.
It's like people just take the idea of, like, look, Sarah Connor's awesome and can shoot people, and lose the depth. Like, yeah. Sarah Connor's a lot more than just that.
Yeah, of course. I love the look on this guy's face when they walk in. Well, now, Miles, you know you're an idiot, because you're not supposed to be here.
You know the rules, Miles. There's no visitors allowed. See, that guy was the Terminator. He had no emotion. That was what that scene was saying.
Oh, I'm really glad that wasn't the twist.
I'm really glad Sarah Connor was like, that man has no emotion, like a Terminator.
I think one of the reasons this movie is as good as it is because it's so easy in every scene for us to ruin it in ways that it happily did not go there. Like, we can screw this movie up in so many ways that you might have expected it to do. And I don't just mean now. Like there's a lot of, you know, really crappy formulaic, you know, 90s action figure 90s action tropes that this could have fallen into that it didn't. This is not me saying weren't movies so much better in 1991. No, the reason this was so successful is because it got away from a lot of the crap that movies of this ilk were doing right then.
Well, and I mean, we have, you know, the bigger, better Terminator. How easy would this have been to just fall into that, where it's like, look how much bigger this film is. Like, the Terminator is the Super Terminator now.
Well, and that was the point I was making at the beginning, where it is bigger and better, but it earns that. Because it's not forced or superficial in being bigger, and arguably the story itself, I mean, I guess it is. Like, I guess it is bigger.
Yeah, no, but it feels like they're, in a way, drawing attention to stuff like that, where we're going bigger, but we're reversing things at the same time.
But it's still small enough that it feels like it's about characters instead of, like, you know, doing the big, like, scary energy beam in the sky at the end. Doesn't have to do that kind of thing. Or like an army of Terminators. You'd think the way we'd go bigger is we've got like 1,000 Terminators this time.
Apparently there was an idea for 3 where they just send back an army of Terminators.
And I'm not saying you couldn't do that and make it kind of cool, but... And also, You could make the argument that the machines in the future should be constantly escalating, so the only thing that makes sense to do in sequels is to keep making it bigger. I guess you could make that argument.
Yeah.
But I just want it to be about Sarah Connor, is the thing.
Oh no, Sarah. He is bringing an army of Terminators with his big blue beam.
Or John. I mean, you can do a Terminator movie that's just about John Connor. I don't think that's like we try to do with Salvation and having him in the future. Like, I don't think it's against the ideas of the movie or of the movies or like sexist or anti feminist or something to have a movie that is just about John Connor. Like, I think that would have been okay.
Well, and I think because obviously with 3 we do John Connor. I think with that, this movie kind of works as a passing the torch film, where the first one is about Sarah.
Yeah.
This one, Sarah and John, and then the third is John. It just ultimately didn't really work. And I mean, we kind of have to dump Sarah in 3 just because I don't think Linda Hamilton wanted to be involved with that.
Yeah. See, I think that, and this is a big issue with Dark Fate, where I feel like it almost, not almost, I think it totally misinterpreted what this movie was about, where, people look back on this movie in particular with, it being an Arnold Star vehicle and him being the good guy Terminator this time, as just another, masculine action movie, and, pay attention to it. That's not what it is. I'm also not saying that masculine action movies are bad. I'm just saying that, for this of all franchises to feel like it had to go back and fix something by making a huge deal out of having female heroes and not having cool guys hardly in their movie at all is just absolutely preposterous. John Connor cannot be what he is without Sarah Connor and without her raising him the way she does. These movies are, at least these first 2, are not about him. They are about Sarah Connor. And even though he is here and we're seeing, how he's been raised and stuff, it's always about her influence on him. That's what it's about. You got that dumb line in Dark Fate where it's where we act like all she was good for was giving birth to the savior of the future. You're missing the boat entirely when you say that. That's not what it was.
Even when you go back to the first movie, Kyle Reese is like, John Connor is as good as he is because you raised him in this way. Where it's he boils down John Connor's, being the savior as being, the entire reason for that is Sarah raised him to be that.
That movie will almost, that smile works. It shouldn't, but it does. But yeah, we almost treat it in that movie we almost imply that the reason that Judgment Day keeps getting pushed back and that it's still ultimately going to happen is because John Connor was never really supposed to be the savior, and we got to get rid of him so that we can have a girl do it. And it's just preposterous. In a very significant way, a girl already did it. Sarah Connor's what matters. I don't know. I don't understand that.
I think this action scene is kind of amazing in that we don't kill a single person in this giant action scene in in our $100 million action film.
Yeah.
Where this feels like something out of like a Commando or something, but again he's just shooting around people because John Connor's teaching him about the value of life.
And he's just lucky he doesn't hit anyone. It's that Batman Begins zero casualties thing where somebody should die in this scene.
When there's the cars that explode, yeah. I just think that's really cool for an action film at this time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And you know what else is cool? This movie is not missing the grit of the first one just because it has more money and it's a bigger movie.
Yeah.
They don't fully lose that. It's a different kind of grit, but it still feels like a lived-in world, and it still feels dirty in the ways that it needs to. I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't think it's suddenly super polished.
No, it doesn't feel like it's a sterilized version of the first film.
That's what I meant. Yeah. I want to go back to your point about Miles Dyson being a tragic character because he's about to die, and we haven't talked about him that much.
Yeah.
but like I said, I love that speech that Sarah has to him that John backs her off on, and I think that he is. She's got a point, but I think that he is remarkably sympathetic. I wish we went a little bit more though into like his own personal motivations and like his passions and how he feels about the world in the future and like why he's in this business at all. Because he doesn't come off like a two-dimensional character, but I don't know enough about him.
Yeah, for sure. He doesn't have like that much time. Because most of his screen, I think we get that one scene or two scenes with him before our main characters meet him. So yeah, I can see that.
It feels like Sarah's being somewhat unfair to him initially when, but I think
she definitely is.
But I think like I said, she really has a point because she says like
she's got
like,
the hindsight.
Say it again.
She has the 20/20 hindsight while he doesn't.
That's exactly right. Yeah, she knows what's going to happen if he builds that, and she doesn't, and his heart's in the right place, and he's just exploring and creating and trying to understand, science and see what he can develop. However, I just thought of this. There is the issue of intentional blind ignorance. He knows that that the people that are running this project will not tell him where any of this technology came from. And so there is an inherent lack of responsibility there.
He feels very Frankenstein to me.
That's interesting.
He's gonna build this whole thing, except he has to, die for it before he makes the monster.
There's kind of that classic idea that you see in a lot of science fiction, and you see with Nick Fury in Avengers even, where if you don't develop a thing yourself, you're not, or even Jurassic Park, right? Like you didn't build it yourself, and so you don't have a sense of responsibility in using it, and you're not thinking of the potential dangers with it, and you think that you can tame something that you don't fully understand. That is what we have here. And so to be fair to Sarah in that scene, she doesn't break that down, but I guess that is the inherent mistake that Miles Dyson is making, is that he is messing around with something that he can't possibly understand, as opposed to something that he developed for the first place. Like, I don't think this works at all if it's not the hand from the future. Or the chip from the future, right? Like, it can't be something that you just started developing from scratch yourself, because you would, if you developed it, potentially have more of that sense of responsibility.
Yeah, and I was going to mention earlier, too, there's a bit of a retcon there, because there are more bits of the Terminator that survive at the end of that first movie.
We talked about that, I think, when we did the commentary on that.
Did we? Yeah.
Well, I can't remember, but I remember noticing that where it was like, oh yeah, there's more pieces than just the hand.
Shot where you see his leg fly off.
They just didn't find that.
Yeah.
It got taken to the city dump, and
some janitor took that. He really liked that leg.
Well, and maybe they're keeping... Actually, maybe that's not a retcon. Maybe they're keeping pieces of it and not giving them everything.
Oh, maybe,
because it riddle me this. If all they have is a hand and the chip, how the hell did they get that chip? It came out of his head. Like, it's a computer chip. How do they have only those two things? I don't buy that. This is one of the great movie deaths.
Chance that it was crushed and... No, you're right, yeah.
His choice of breathing there right before he dies makes that one of the great movie deaths.
Yeah.
And like the sound drops out, and it's a wonderfully dramatic moment.
Yeah, and I think it's something that could have come off as silly, but doesn't.
I don't think it's silly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here comes our perversion of authority, as I said earlier, rolling up in the middle of all the destroyed police cars with the real authorities that can't do anything. That's really good stuff. Okay, well, at least one person in the comments thinks it's silly. Maybe I'm giving things too much credit, but I think it's great.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like somebody could think it's silly, but I think it works.
And I don't mean to be uncritical of a thing that's like beloved and that most of us agree is one of the great science fiction movies and one of the great action movies. And like, you know, if I found a lot of things that I thought were mistakes, I certainly would not candy coat it just because I think this is a good movie. And I mentioned a couple things here and there, but it's just wonderfully solid.
The stab thing earlier.
You've got issues with stuff they've cut that should still be there, and I agree with that. I don't think the Terminator's arc about perhaps becoming more human by the end really works as great without some of those scenes.
Yeah, and some of them even I think are just great scenes too. Like it's just kind of a shame that they were cut.
And I complained a little bit about some slightly, contrived moments and things like that. And the kid in places being a little bit silly. Solar Dragon, now that I think of it, how'd they even retrieve the chip from the T-800's crushed head? I don't know where it is in the head. Like, it's possible that it could get crushed.
You see it in that scene where they take it out. They have a whole thing where you go into his head. And
I forgot about that. You watch these back-to-back again.
Yeah.
That fire in front of the motorcycle is a nice touch.
It's so cool looking too.
Do you think the Terminator is really sick yet of firing on these cop cars? Like, it's all he's done for the last 10 minutes. He just keeps shooting at these cop cars.
No, he's like, finally, I can be a Terminator without not allowed to kill. Which I forgot to mention, but he'll live is one of my favorite Arnold lines.
Is that what you're talking about at the beginning?
Yeah, where he shoots the guy in both kneecaps.
I also like that moment where John asks him why he's got to kill everyone, and he just goes, "I'm a Terminator."
It is really good.
That's great. Oh, hey, I have a stupid question for you, Austin.
If it's stupid, I won't answer it.
If he's another... Okay, well, you be the judge. If he's... It's like if the breathing was silly. You be the judge. But this is another T-800, the same model from the first movie.
Yeah.
But if he's a T-800, why is he Model 101? Like, why do we have both of those?
I think they say the Model 101 thing in the first movie, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why we have both of those things.
I think they say, like, T-800 Model 101 or something like that in the first movie, but I could be wrong.
Another thing
I watched them both, like, back-to-back, so I might be, like, misremembering that.
Another thing I picked up on this viewing, or the viewing I did before we did the commentary. Oh, is this going to be that bit where he basically gives him a chance to just jump out and I don't know why he doesn't just kill him. There's a couple places like that where I don't know why the T-1000 is sparing people.
Yeah.
And early before John gives the T-800 the no-kill order, he'll do that some too, where it's like, why didn't you just kill that guy? There's
in that scene with the bar.
Yeah, the guy that he takes the clothes from. I don't know why he doesn't just kill that guy. He seems to let him live, although it's ambiguous. You don't really see it, but anyway, I was talking about something. I don't remember what it was.
That guy definitely lives because the bartender comes out and is like, "I'm not letting you take this guy's motorcycle."
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, maybe that's because he wanted the motorcycle. Maybe that was why. No, but
motorcycle's mine, there, boy.
I like that.
I want to see that.
I like the bit. I didn't think of this until this viewing. I like the bit earlier where John's talking about how like a lot of this like rough and tumble action stuff is normal to him, and he thought that was just the way other kids were raised. That rings true. I like that thing a lot. But I also like that he says one of the examples he gives of things that were normal for him was helicopters. And this whole ending sequence is this big helicopter scene. I love that. Like, this is just
where he's like,
this is just normal to John.
It's like Nintendo. I also just love how Arnold takes out this helicopter. I think it's like really funny.
So maybe that. So people are talking about the Model 101 thing. So is the idea that people are just saying that, like, confirming that Kyle called it that in the first movie? Is the idea just that there are different models of that particular number? Is that what it is?
Is it maybe like the Arnold one is 101 and like because you see other T800s in that, or at least one other T800 in that movie in the future flashback that's
And it
not
doesn't
Arnold.
look like him? Okay.
Yes, maybe because if they're supposed to be infiltrators, and it's a problem I have when we get into the sequels, like you would think they wouldn't be based off the same person, because then you would just know that person is Terminator.
Oh, that was a question I had, and obviously they don't know this when they're making this movie because this is a thing that I wouldn't have thought of unless I'd watched the Sarah Connor Chronicles. But I wonder if, just fun, silly speculation, if the T-1000 is based on a real person in the fiction, like in the future. Like, did they just make up that face? Or
T3?
Oh, is there?
Yeah, where Arnold's voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, and he's the
What?
Because it's like Arnold's like this general, and he's talking, and he's got this really goofy voice, and the person's like, "I like the look of that guy, but I don't like his voice." And this nerdy like assistant goes, "We'll find another one."
Weird.
It's very strange.
But because the T-1000 is a shapeshifter, you wouldn't necessarily have to pick a model.
Yeah.
Like, he could just make that up, or it could be, like, the face of somebody he killed in the future, even. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Because I feel like that would be a thing that you could do with a sequel, is the T-1000 is constantly changing. Almost like, if you've ever seen a movie...
Well, that's why I'm not sure why he always goes back to this to this face. Because, like, he has, like, a default, like, regular person face, like the other Terminators.
Like a movie thing where it's just... This is the actor that's gonna
play him. Yeah, no, I know, but I'm with you. Like, it might have been fun. I like this a lot, the way they did it, and he's got a really distinct affect. So I'm like, that bumper sticker's funny. But I like, but like, it could have been like 15, 20 different actors, playing him.
Yeah, like I think that would be a good idea for a sequel. You do an It Follows thing where he's constantly changing.
Brandon Pepler says the model for the T-1000 was based on a resistant soldier that was killed. Also, I don't know where he's getting that from, but if that's true, it's like what I was saying, where it's like somebody he killed in the future, and then he kept that phase.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tom, $5 super chat. Thanks, man. I think the model number is what he looks like, and the T number is like the OS. That's kind of what you were describing.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing too.
He got that from the Nuclear Twilight comics, Terminator 2 Nuclear Twilight, which feature him as a member of John's unit, and he was killed off. I mean, I don't know if that's considered canon, but that's as good of an idea as anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, I can believe that.
I wouldn't mind doing some Terminator comics if there's supposed to be any good ones, Austin.
Yeah, I don't know, because that was Dark Horse, so I'm sure there's probably some good stuff there.
And they had a lot of crossover stuff, I think, right? Because I know there's like a Terminator RoboCop thing, and
I think there's like a Terminator and Alien thing, and Terminator versus Alien versus Predator versus Terminator, I think, is a thing.
I always want that to go farther with like 16 other franchises, where like there's so many franchises it takes up the entire book cover, and you don't even need to draw anything because it's just all words. Where you get in the Matrix, and you get in Alien Predator, and you get in I don't know what else.
It's like Alien versus X-Files versus Terminator versus the Matrix versus RoboCop versus Rambo versus Alf
versus X-Files versus Rocky.
Yeah.
Versus Bananas in Pajamas versus the big comfy couch. I think when I get to commentaries where I don't have a whole lot to say, I'm just gonna do that the whole time.
Just pitch other movies that could have been made instead.
Just pick a big long list of crossovers that never end.
Keep that running for 2.5 hours. That shot looks really great where he like shoots the T-1000.
Yeah, and I love the lighting on the other side of the truck when it's skirting along the ground.
Yeah, and I know just from the trailer that we redo that shot in Dark Fate. and it's just like a close up of his head.
Oh yeah, Hawk Flame,
Yeah.
Batman versus Aliens is great. The first two. The third one's awful, but I'm sorry, not Aliens, Predator. I haven't read the Aliens ones and the Superman Aliens comics either. I've not looked at. So how do you feel about the fact that we
ended up
end
in another factory?
we
again?
end in a similar kind of locale?
Well, this is like just the look of this place is very James Cameron.
Yeah.
Like, Aliens kind of has, obviously it's different because it's a spaceship, but it has a similar look to this where it's machinery and like flashing lights and all this stuff.
That's a good point.
Smoke.
Well, and interesting that we managed to make a completely different story that's about some like we said last commentary, building on the themes and ideas from the first movie, but going its own way and talking about some different things as well. But at the same time, and I think maybe that this was the idea with setting this in another factory, there is quite a bit of, we're going to do some things we did in the first movie, but like way better because we can do them the way I really wanted to this time.
Well, it's not that Evil Dead 2 thing where Evil Dead 2 or 1 ends up feeling more like a prototype to Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, do you think Terminator feels like a prototype, though? Because I still say that they're almost different
not
genres.
Not in the sense, but more so in that there's like certain ideas that we redo. Like this is very much the Terminator when they burn off his skin. And it's the fake out death.
And of course, everybody remembers Hasta La Vista, Baby, but I think a lot of that is because it's such a good payoff from that earlier line. Like, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not just like a silly thing he says. He didn't just read it in a book somewhere. Like that is one of the big examples of his influence from John. Like John has gotten him to the personality he has now.
Yeah, it feels like that RoboCop moment where RoboCop does the gun flip.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's exactly like that.
Although the T-1000 was frozen, so he clearly should have said "chill out."
Yes, but then that would be an ice pun, and given the future for Schwarzenegger, maybe it's the best that we didn't get an ice pun.
No problemo, chill out.
Chill out.
Yeah, no, it's a great payoff.
And most of the humor in this movie is just really naturally born out of the situation. It's situational humor.
Yeah, and like Arnold kind of works as our comic relief, and which he kind of does in the first movie, despite being the villain, which we talked about in last commentary.
Which is amazing because it doesn't ruin him. It doesn't make him less impactful as a hero, or even in the moments where he's supposed to be kind of scary, as that.
Yeah.
This looks amazing.
Yeah, this part looks really good. Some of the stuff with Arnold, too, with the special effects on him look really great. And in, 3 and Dark Fate, we tend to just do the CGI machinery on his face, and it never looks as good as it does in this movie.
No, and isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That, years and years later, we tend to kind of phone that in. And
yes.
Part of the now, to be fair, part of the reason that we're trying so hard in this movie is because Cameron is trying to prove that it can work. So you got to make it look as realistic as possible because he's trying to pioneer here. And later on, when it's just a thing we've done before.
With Arnold, that's all Stan Winston, and Stan Winston's the man. Stan Winston did John Carpenter's The Thing, which is one of the best looking films of all time, in my opinion.
This scene was parodied somewhat recently, I guess a year ago now, in the AVGN review for Pepsi Man. And if you've not seen that, you got to go watch the Pepsi Man review because it's amazing.
Yes, I remember that.
And it has a really funny parody of the end of this movie. The angry video game nerd is looking around for Pepsi Man, and he runs past a factory. He goes, he's in some factory. Hey, that factory! He just runs in the factory, and then it's just this scene. It's really funny. Easily one of his best efforts.
Yeah, I remember that one being pretty good. And this climax is much longer than the first one, which 'cause the first one's got more of a horror climax. Well, this one goes more out with the action, but I think it works really well.
Yeah, and it's still pretty visceral. It's just not slashery.
Yeah, yeah, because the ending of the first one's very like Friday the 13th or something like that, where you have the slow moving character follow like slowly walking after our main characters.
Yeah, it's not that like trying to stab through doors to get to you,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And the end of that first movie was like that. And it's great. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have been that. It's just really nice that we could get beyond that and do something else because at the moment that you make this concept another slasher picture, it's really hard not to just make it the same movie again.
yeah. Well, and two.
And that's why I think 3 needed to somehow be something else again. And I don't know what exactly that is, and nobody has figured out that for me, besides go all the way to the future. Like, I get that. But if it's going to be another, like, Sarah Connor, John Connor thing, or just John Connor in the present, it needed to, like Terminator 2 did with 1, get into even yet a third kind of genre.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is that this movie is so much of a reversal of the first one, especially with Arnold. When you get to the other sequels where it's just the same thing, it stops being a reversal and just becomes the mainstay.
Yeah.
Like Arnold being the good guy is never clever again after this.
No, of course not. And that's why we shouldn't have used him anymore.
Yeah.
But of course they're afraid they can't do these without him, and he likes doing them, and so he's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Because like they don't have to keep convincing him. He always wants to do these. Like it's the franchise that made him popular. Yeah.
Well, and he
God, the hole in his face thing. This is all so clever, by the way. Just all the action in this.
That effect looks really good.
Yeah, it looks really good. And we talked over it, but one of my favorite moments is when he's turned around and he just morphs himself facing the other way.
It's great. Yeah. That and Arnold ripping his arm off also like look amazing.
Steve Murphy, that's a good point. He says this makes me believe they could do Clayface, and
yeah.
It's weird because the Clayface episode in animated series is just like a year or two after this, and it didn't occur to me that this might have influenced the morphing effects in the animation in that, but it may have.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen that episode.
Now, if he wanted to, could he pull out a third arm?
I wondered that earlier, or like not earlier. Last time I watched this too, is if he like, kind of like in Endgame where Iron Man can like take part of his leg off and like move it towards like his arm or something if his suit's broken.
Yeah.
I guess it's Infinity War. Like I wonder if he could like lose one of his legs and have a third arm.
Maybe. Because they're ambiguous about what his actual mass is. They're like, it's got to be of comparable size, but I don't know if that means that you can't have a third arm or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Because if he like gets rid of his leg and has a third arm, he would still have the same mass.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Maybe you could have like hands for feet and feet for hands if you wanted to. I don't know.
Oh, he'd be like a Doug from Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, all the like this effect with Arnold's face, like where he's missing half of it, looks really great.
And of course, it's super iconic, and we had action figures of that. And
in every movie, but like I said, it's always CGI after this, and it never looks as good.
Yeah, the practical effect is great, and it looks better than any of the stuff we tried to do like that in the first movie too. Because sometimes when you close up too much on the prosthetics, the seams started to show a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that in that one scene where he pulls out his eye, where it's clearly just like a prop head.
So I'm gonna be a little pretentious in my analysis here for a second. He's got machine face now on one side, but he's retained his humanity on the other side. So he is both machine and man now.
Yeah. He's half machine, half man, all Terminator.
I think that moment is supposed to make you think that he is done and he's been taken out, and we're not going to see any more of him.
No, it definitely
his
is,
red
yeah.
eye goes blank, and he looks totally done. And it's kind of fun because we do that in the first movie, kind of with the bad guy Terminator, and then he's going to come back after us again. But in this, he's going to come back in a triumphant way.
Yeah, it would be like if Kyle Reese showed up again after he died. Except good.
William Purcell, so was Arnold super famous at this point, which would explain them switching him to protagonist, or was that fully a writing decision? Yes, he was.
Total Recall, like all that stuff came before this.
And that's why, yeah, Running Man was before this. That's why I am so impressed and have a lot of respect for him for not trying to take over the movie any more than he does. I mean, there's lots of scenes he's not even in. Again, he wanted to be the hero, but he doesn't take over. Like, he gets an arc, and he probably was happy enough with my character gets to grow and basically become a person that you care about, but not at the expense of Sarah Connor.
Mutale just said, didn't Conan make Arnold famous first? Yeah, he did both Conan movies right before the first Terminator, but they're all pretty close together.
And even when Terminator comes out, like as that comes out, he's not a huge name yet.
Yeah, he's not.
That puts him on the map,
yeah.
Certainly. But at this point, we're getting into Star Vehicle era, and like you don't see this a lot. Where this is a star vehicle for Schwarzenegger, where he's not the hero.
So this is the scene where we use her twin.
Oh, interesting. Boy, that's really cool that they never do the split screen thing. It's always twins.
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think, I mean, we've been doing that for a long time. Like, you have, was it The Parent Trap, I think?
I mean, we've been able to do that and make it look decent all the way back to the 50s and 60s.
That's what I mean, isn't the original Parent Trap?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what's funny is you didn't actually really have to use twins because you never have them interacting. Like, nobody would probably even think that was twins if you're used to seeing split screen or compositing, because at no point do they touch each other. Like the where you'd want to use twins, I would think would be if they got in like a fist fight.
Yeah, they're always really far away from each other.
Yeah, you can always imagine where the line probably is.
This effect on the T-1000 is also amazing.
Now, I'm not sure how he came back. I don't know how his light turned back on, but okay.
Well, yeah, there's like a thing where it's like he has alternate power source.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Nobody says that, but that's great. How come he sounds like a velociraptor on his way down? Like, why is he like he has like a monster voice?
I don't know.
So why does he have a monster voice? And then he turns into all these people we've never seen him turn into before. So I guess he has turned into lots of people that some of them we've seen him turn into.
But I think they're all people we've seen before, aren't they? They're the mom and that guy from earlier.
Okay, I thought there was one that we didn't see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, maybe this is.
I thought there was like a black lady with a big fro. I don't remember him turning into her, but maybe I don't know. And then this is just creepy.
Yeah, it is pretty creepy, but I don't think this effect holds up that well. Like, it's okay for the time, I think.
Yeah.
It's
and there's like
a little bit much.
Obviously, he was always an evil robot and didn't develop humanity the way that the Terminator does, but he's always trying to look human. Like his programming is like constantly infiltrate, constantly pretend to be a person. So like he's trying to hold on to at the end like that look of being a person, of being human, and is not able to do that. So I like that the last thing we see of him is that like. Freaked out, like in terror face before he goes. Like he can't retain that visage.
Yeah. And now Arnold needs a vacation, as he says.
Oh, that was the stepmom. Oh, okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's the stepmom and the that guard from earlier.
Yeah, as he was transforming into other things, I didn't think it looked like her, but I guess that's who that was supposed to be. Okay, so I have a logical question about this, and you're not going to be able to answer it because oh, by the way, that ship is freaking huge. Like, so in the far future, where we make robots, we have this like big, giantly huge computer chip, so that the audience can see the prop. I think that's why that chip's that big. Anyway, so I have a logical question for you that I don't think you'll be able to answer because
Challenge
we're ambiguous enough about this. But the Terminator says, "I need you to lower me down because I can't self-terminate." But I would think that his programming would stop him from doing anything that he would know was going to get him killed. Like, I'm not sure I buy that he would even be able to step out onto the thing and allow himself to be lowered down. Like, isn't that tantamount to destruction? Self-termination.
Yeah, I guess. But we need the sad moment.
No, I know, and I'm splitting hairs to a degree. Like it's a nitpicky thing, but
you know why they have to have her do it, right?
What is that?
Because she hits a switch that looks exactly like that to kill Arnold in the first movie.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
It was a thought I had last night the night before when I watched the first movie. It's like the exact same switch.
And I think these films are more interconnected than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely are.
You know, people think of this as, an attempt at a better movie, and it is, and it succeeds at that.
Well,
but
I think people are also just
they're also
familiar with this one
companion
too, so
pieces.
That probably goes into that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we will continue to try to make Arnold's death sad, but it never is after this movie. Because we always know he's going to die.
Also, I have questions about whether the Terminator has been able to move beyond his programming. Because he's not allowed to self-terminate. That's why he can't just throw himself in. So he's still a slave to his programming to some degree. But there's the question
John had to teach him about suicide, and they didn't have enough time.
Oh, okay. So are you saying that John has made it so that he can get past some programming but not others? Because here's my question. So does he have like a laws of robotics thing where some things, some commands trump other commands? Like, John orders him because he's able to tell him what to do, not to do this, but he's able to do it anyway. So is that because doing this will protect John and that overrides that command, or is it just because he's moved beyond that part of his programming and he's more human now? I'm a little unsure on this point.
Yeah, it feels like that. We want to have this emotional moment, but like if you think about it, maybe it doesn't work entirely the way it's shown.
Yeah.
They actually had to cut a line from this scene where Arnold dies. Because Arnold didn't like his line.
Oh, what was it?
I don't know if when he hits the lava, he goes, "Ow, this is not the cool party."
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that I think he was right about it. I think his instincts were correct. I'm a little surprised then that he was willing in another movie later to utter the phrase "cool party," because I would think that he would be unhappy with that line in anything after that.
He liked that script more.
Oh, okay, sure. So I identify the shot of the road at night as a Terminator thing, and every time I go into an umpteenth new Terminator movie, which maybe we'll never get any more of now, I always expect them to open with that image, and part of that is because, and I can't remember if 3 opens on it or not, but nearly every trailer does. Every time you do a trailer for a new Terminator movie, you're always looking at the road. And it's a good thematic thing, and it's the last image you're left with in this movie, and so everybody remembers it. But I don't think we hardly ever do that. And I always think, like, whenever I sit down and watch a Terminator movie, I'm going to see the road right away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it works really well in this as, like, a metaphor of we now can't see what the future lies. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Because the original ending, so now I can finally explain what the alternate ending is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is we jump forward to the future, and it's them at the playground, and it's, like, John, I think with his kids, and an elderly Sarah Connor.
Oh, interesting.
So it's straight up like, no, we're done.
I wish that, I mean, after everything that's happened since then, there's a part of me that wishes they'd kept that ending. But then, you know, it was so popular, they would have found a way to do it anyway. And because the thing is, the no fate but what you make thing can work in you know, the other way too, where you can be like, well, you were just seeing an alternate future, and they actually didn't really end up there. And I mean.
Oh, Brandon Pepler says that John becomes a senator in the alternate future. I don't remember if that's in the ending, but it's been a while since I've seen it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's all it is we just get the future, and it's them at that playground. And they finally stop Judgment Day. Here we do get the song in the credits. I always stop during the credits.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched through the credits either. More pretentious analysis, Austin. I also like the image of just the idea of a highway, because it's like you said, it's a stretched you know, to the end of time road. You don't know where it's going. It's dark. So there's no telling if it's gonna take you where you think it's going to go. But also, you sometimes have solid lines that you can't pass between, and you have the separated lines that where you can pass. So there's that question of can I make detours? Can I make changes or not? It's a really good image.
Is there a stop sign? Is there a yield sign? We may never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there going to be a roundabout? I sure hope not. I hate those.
Yeah, if anything, we need to destroy roundabouts. Go back in time and end them.
That's what I would do if I had that ability. Absolutely.
Have you ever seen the music video for this song?
No.
It's pretty great. It's Arnold being sent back in time to kill Guns N' Roses.
Wow. Oh, okay. See, I wouldn't have thought of that whole Guns N' Roses thing that you mentioned earlier, because I didn't realize they had a song that was associated with those.
Yeah, this is the theme of the movie, yeah.
Somehow I missed that. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, and so it's like them playing at a concert and Arnold going around looking for them. And at the end, they're walking out of, like, the back of, like, the arena, and they walk into Arnold, and he scans each individual one, and he gets to Axl Rose, who's last, and it's like, Axl Rose, waste of ammo, and he walks away.
Somebody in the Brandon Pepler in the comments just mentioned that. I didn't know what he was talking about until you said that. That's really funny. That's great. We talked with the first movie. I should mention this real quick because we didn't really talk too much about the convoluted time travel, which was kind of refreshing, really, to go through this whole movie and not really get too much into that whole thing.
It doesn't feel as crazy as the first one, at least to me. I don't know.
It really does. Well, and I think part of that is because so we had the discussion about whether or not it's really ambiguous about the no fate but what you make thing, and I've always suggested that that idea is not like a permanent definite thing, that's like those characters interpreting events that way, but then the end of this movie is still ambiguous about whether or not humanity is going to make it at the end. Like, they've stopped Judgment Day from happening right now, but I think very intentionally there's not, except for the end scene that they cut where you do see the future, and that's probably partly why they cut that. There's this kind of like looming question, and that's the point of the road of like, what is going to happen now, though? Like will the universe reset itself to make sure that this still happens, or I guess more poignantly, is humanity just destined to destroy itself in some way? And of course, so in subsequent sequels, we just keep staving Judgment Day off to the point where in Dark Fate it's a completely different kind of set of robots that are made in a completely different way, but then for whatever reason they still have to look like Terminators just so they can be Terminator. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so...
But it's different because they're not silver; they're black skeletons.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes all the difference. But going back through this again, I still stand by that. I still say that it's kind of ambiguous, and like the no fate but what you make thing is not. I don't think. I still interpret it this way. That's not like the message of the movie so much as like those characters being like optimistic and hoping that that's what it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's kind of what the implication is too. Is it could go anyway, really.
Or that maybe it's technically, maybe this is more what it is. It technically isn't fate because we always have a choice, but it may be fate in the sense that humanity will always make the wrong choice. Like when you look at the history of our species, and so you know you can look at it in a pessimistic or a positive light, and that's kind of neat. Like whether you're a glass half empty or glass half full person, there's something for you in that ending.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's an ambiguous ending, and I think it works really well.
Well, Austin, thanks a lot for watching with me. That was fun.
That was great. It's a great movie.
And we're already done. It's another one of those where I can't believe we've already blown through that.
I know, it blew through really fast. I'm pretty like it moves at a clip. There's just so much that happens in this movie.
So Austin and I will, at some point down the road, probably go ahead and do 3, and we may go through all of them. I don't want to, but I also do for the sake of completion. So I don't know. We probably ultimately will. We have other plans also. We're gonna do the Running Man at some point. We've been talking about that. Maybe you'll just turn into the Schwarzenegger guy. We'll just do a bunch of Schwarzenegger movies. I don't know.
I was talking about that the other day. I'm like, I guess I'm technically the Arnold expert.
I don't even know how Running Man came out.
Next week we're doing Arnold Mania.
Yeah. we should get DJ to make us a logo for that. That'd be amazing.
In New York. Let's go.
Stop announcing things. I don't even know how Running Man came up. Like, did we think of that just because it's Schwarzenegger? Like, I don't even remember why we were talking about that.
No, I was watching it. I was doing a watch party with some of the guys on the Discord, and you just texted me like, "Hey, do you want to do Running Man at some point?"
Really? Is that what happened? Maybe I was thinking about... You know what? I know what it was. That was a movie that I was supposed to do a commentary with Tim Lyons with, and... I think one night it occurred to me that we never did that, and I was like, who do I know that might do that with me? I bet Austin would do that. I think that's the reason that came up.
Yeah, because I was like, sure. I mean, I've never seen it, and then at like 7 in the morning, I ended up watching that movie. I was like, yeah, no, I can definitely do this.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. I hope you had a good time with us, and we'll see you again down the road for another one. In the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was The Day Ghost.
Bye, everybody.
Later, folks.
It's night, so I can't be here.
Oh, okay. Well, we better leave because we're breaking your rules.